Here we go. It is 6 p.m. and we are ready to start the live stream now. I will now call to order the study session meeting of February 1st, 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically and members of the council are participating remotely pursuant to the council's electronic participation policy. Public access to the meeting is available on the Local Government Access Channel 8 for Comcast subscribers and on the city's YouTube channel online, and by telephone using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Here.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Downing.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Duran-Malika.
Here.
Councilmember Escobar.
Here.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we have one item on our study session tonight. It is the 2020 year-end quarter 3 and quarter 4 economic development and NERA report. So we have Debbie Tuttle here. She is our economic development director and NERA executive director, and she will present some information to council. Members of our Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority are also with us tonight, so welcome. And Debbie, I'm going to hand it over to you. I will share my screen, but just let me know what you need.
All right, just the screen up and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and NERA commissioners. Well, 2020 was an interesting year, was it not? Definitely kept us busy with our business communities for sure. So today, our goal is to give you a Q3, Q4, and year-end reports for both economic development and the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority. Next slide, please. Usually what we try to do is just look at the Northglenn strategic plan, see where we fit into here. As you can see, business retention and growth, and also the housing opportunities. It's an area that we, economic development and the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority, it is impacted and works a lot in. Of course, a lot of these fit within all of our departments, right? Like infrastructure and public safety, sustainability, diverse community engagement, and of course the high performance government. But specifically for us, business retention and growth is a big area for us. COVID concentration last year was definitely on retaining our existing businesses, doing more personal outreach this year than we've ever done in the history of me being here for the last 9 years. Outreach, we also did virtual business walks this year. Last year we had done in 2019, we actually went out and did business walks. This year we did virtual, and we hit 9 areas: Civic Center businesses, Hillcrest, 104th and Huron, Malley, Marketplace Annex, Northglenn Pavilions, Washington East, and Washington Point. And we reached over 106 businesses personally by doing this. I'd like to give a lot of credit to not only our staff, Shannon, but also the other departments that helped with this. So we had people within the finance department, the planning department. Susan Baca helped us definitely. We had Rupa helping us. So there was a whole team of us that were out there calling our businesses to find out how we could help them during these challenging times. Next slide, please. So just a quick glance. I know you've seen this in the legislative update, but again, for the public who might be looking, quick glance at where we are. Again, one of the things that definitely has impacted our community is a low, extremely low inventory of houses. And this is the median price is $395, but I can tell you that fluctuated clear up into the 450s and above, and some down below. In fact, we had to use a 90-day guideline for the median housing because there was only one house on the market for in all of December. One house. Right now, I looked just yesterday, and there's only 3 houses actively on the market that haven't been sold or under contract. So that has been great for Northglenn. People are moving here, and we're always welcoming him to our community. So next slide, please. So ribbon cuttings were a challenge, of course, as you can imagine, in quarter 3 and 4, but we were able to do 4 of them. Many of you were there to share in those in the excitement of opening these. Dutch Brothers, Local Choice Heating and Air, Office Evolution, Golden Blade Barbershop. And again, these were all done in quarter 4. I just want to make a note on Office Evolution here. They have a lot, they're almost 76% leased and looking at expanding already. So I can tell you this model is really working, as well as the Phoenix salons. Again, those co-working spaces have really boomed here in Northglenn this year. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to really thank City Council for all of your support and all the staff that helped with our grants. We were able to issue $1.2 million in grants that were CARE Act funded. As you can see from the slide here, Elevate Small Business round 1 was 129 grants, 59 grants in the second round. So you can see 494,000 and 290,000. The Businesses Back Recovery Grant, 131 businesses took advantage of that, and 40 businesses took advantage of the Dining Mini Grant. So of a total of 359 grants were awarded and $1.2 million. And I hear over and over and over again compliments to the City of Northglenn and our team, specifically in our City Council, for all that we're doing for our businesses. I have businesses that have 5 different locations, and they continually say, you guys are on top of everything. We get the information right away. Like when something's coming out at noon, we're there at 12:05, sending out the information to them. So again, kudos to everybody who helped support all of our businesses this year. The business grants were incredible and truly did help them. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the new storefront businesses here. All of the new businesses are in your economic development report on page 3 and 4 for quarter 3 and 4. And a full list of all the 2020 storefront companies that opened this year are also an attachment 2. As you can see, the majority of them were in the marketplace and city center, or civic center as we call it, but this is the geocode that the city uses. And of those, again, that was Phoenix and Phoenix Salons in the marketplace, and Office Evolution over at the Metro North building at 120th and Grant. Some highlights of those were the new 7-Eleven on Huron Street, Dutch Brothers, again, Office Evolution. So again, they're 72% leased. They have 29 businesses in there now. Phoenix did close a few, so you'll see a few of those on the because of COVID, but they backfilled all those tenants. They're now 100% leased. They've got 32 suites and they have 41 businesses in there. And the reason why they've got 41 out of the 32 is some of them are actually sharing space together. So some work on Monday and Wednesday and the others work on Tuesday and Thursday. And they've got a waiting line of businesses that want to go in. So true success stories there. Next slide, please. So closed businesses, that's always the bummer to talk about, right? So you can see here that in quarter 3 and quarter 4, and again, this is highlighted on page 4 and 5 of your economic development report, and there's a full list of all of them in quarter 3 and 4 are in your economic development report, but you can see where the majority of the closures were. And again, you'll see Marketplace, and Marketplace, the majority of that was Phoenix Salons. There's lots of little businesses that closed. So 23 businesses closed, 17 of those closed due to COVID. And there was one more that closed to COVID, but that was reported in quarter 2. So some of the business highlights of some of the ones that did close that were larger were Asian Buffet, Jumping Jack for Cash, Periodic Brewery, Cinnebox, Atlanta Bread, Anytime Fitness, and Northglenn Fit Body. Those all closed because of COVID, as well as others on the list. 2 other ones that closed, I wanted to note, was Brock & Company. As you probably know, they're the CPA. We honored them at our business appreciation breakfast several years ago. They've been in the community for over 30 years, right there at the Northglenn building, at the Metro North building. And the the bottom line was they weren't able to come up with lease negotiations to fit both of their needs. And so they did move to Westminster. So that's definitely a loss for us. This is a 30-year-old company. The landlords and owners of that building, when they took it over, the new owners, they wanted to make that building mainly medical. And that is a kind of businesses that they're attracting, with the exception of Office Evolution. So you'll see that in new businesses as they're coming forward. Also, StormGuard, another one of our business appreciation breakfasts. I always say, I hate to almost honor our businesses because almost all of them seem to leave. We make them so good, but then like with StormGuard, we had no place to actually relocate them. They wanted to purchase a building, and they did find one outside of Erie. We did look definitely to try to find them a building, but we weren't able to. Attachment C of the Economic Development Report lists all the businesses that have closed. So a total of 45 businesses for all of 2020, and 18 of those have closed due to COVID. One thing I might add also, and this goes for the new and also the closed. A lot of times we don't close out our closed and our new businesses. What we're reporting is what we have right now. Sometimes closed businesses will come in the first quarter of 2021. And so you'll see these numbers at the end could be different than what we're actually reporting today, both on open and closed, because they haven't turned in their business license or they haven't closed. So just as an FYI. Next slide, please. So quick little 2020 economic indicators. What I wanted to do here was to tell you what our goals were. Without COVID, I'm sure we would have made all of our goals, but our goal for the Economic Development Department was to lease 100,000 square feet of new space. We leased 87,540, which is really good when you consider COVID. We wanted an unemployment rate of 5%, and we're at 9.5. Again, something totally out of our control. I don't know if you guys have been watching some of the news, but there's been reported a lot of fraudulent unemployment things going on. So actually this number is probably high. But again, they're sorting that out. Colorado Department of Labor and Employment are looking at that. They're adjusting numbers for the months as they find if there is any discrepancies. And again, our goal was to meet with 80 businesses personally on business retention visits, and we met with over 106. So we exceeded that. And by far, we met with more businesses, talked with more businesses, and communicated with more businesses, as I said before, than ever before. We've really gotten to know our businesses personally. And so some good things come out of COVID-19. Of course, we didn't have our business appreciation breakfast as well. So next slide. So kind of I call this the ugly chart. We call this the ugly chart. So I'm going to kind of walk you through, the reality check of what's really happening. So if you look at the first three columns, you're going to see new storefront businesses were 50, 150 new jobs, 87,540 square feet was absorbed. You go to the next three columns next to that, and we had 45 close. We lost 168 jobs, and we lost 91,647 square feet because of closures. So the net new storefronts was 5, net new jobs was in the negative by 18, and a net square footage absorption of negative 4,107. Again, a lot of this is due to COVID, but I wanted to do just a quick little highlight again on some of the big things that happened during certain months. Because if you look at these numbers, you go, what in the heck happened in January? 41,000 square feet was leased. Well, that included in January, we had the courts that opened of 32,000 square feet. So that was a big one, right? But we also had, the Carl's Farm Mercantile close, and we had Dress Barn close, as well as others. In February, we closed U.S. Bank and we closed Bare Metal Manufacturing, but we gained in March New Rocket Brakes, which was 7,200 square feet. Office Evolution, the reason why May is so high in square footage is because Office Evolution came in and that was 11,000 square feet. And again, in August, we saw a major decline with the Jumping Jack Cash at Asian Buffet. But we also, in that same month, we were able to bring in 7-Eleven over on Huron, as well as which was all new construction of 3,000 square feet there. But we closed Periodic Brewery. So this is how that ugly chart goes up and down. So I just wanted to kind of give you some insight on that. Unfortunately, in November, Atlanta Bread closed, which was truly heartbreaking for all of us, as well as Anytime Fitness and Northglenn Fit Body and Brock Company. So again, November looked really bad for us for closures. So any questions before I move on from that chart, because it is a little complicated? No?
Councilmember Brown.
Oh, thank you.
Debbie, I'm sorry if you already said this, but how many total overall businesses do we have in Northglenn?
About, and I just got the numbers today, but I'm going to say with storefronts and home-based businesses around 950. Okay,
thanks. That makes me very happy with the COVID numbers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Next slide, please. So the good news is for all of us, even with COVID and all the closures that we just talked about, we're only projecting a small decrease, as you can see, from 20.2 in 2019 to 19.4 million at the end of 2020. And again, this is projected sales tax. Jason will be putting the final numbers together as we get them. So the good news is that I honestly thought it was going to look worse than what it was. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit of a deceiving chart as well. So as you can see, there's $52 million of commercial building permit values. The big ones of that were North Metro Fire at 2.5 million, Avamere with 2 million, 7-Eleven, 1 million, the Delta Marriott at 5.7 million. But the city of Northglenn had for the Civic Center, the new rec center, senior center, and theater was 33.4 million, and 3.5 million for a new lift station. So if you take out the city, the Civic Center piece and the new lift station, we'd be more at 2018 levels at 15 million. And this does not include, in 2021, we're going to see some major increases because of Carl's Farm and all the permits that will be coming forward on that. Next slide. And please interrupt me if you have any questions. I'm trying to go through these kind of fast, so please interrupt me. Again, we talked about the unemployment, but just to give you kind of an idea of where we were last year in December, we were at a 2.1% unemployment rate. 2.1. We're at 9.5 now. So last year in December, we had 553 people in Northglenn unemployed. Right now, at the end of 2020, we have 2,119 residents that have filed for unemployment. So you can see the major increase here. The worst month for us in Northglenn was April. We had a 6.1% unemployment rate with over 3,066 people unemployed. That was our worst month, was April, which makes sense because COVID started again with all the closures in March and it hit in April. And next slide, please. Before we move forward on anything on the NERA piece, is there anything for me on the economic development report that anybody'd like to ask?
I don't see any hands, Debbie.
Okay, then we're going to go to the NERA at a glance. As you know, we do a quarterly joint meetings with council and the NERA board to provide a formal opportunity to discuss current and upcoming NERA-related projects and activities. We agreed to go to twice a year and incorporate it with the economic development report. So we're going to be doing this twice a year, but I'm always updating you all the time on anything that's happening with NERA as it comes forward. You're going to see the quarter 3 and quarter 4 year-end review. And the one thing that we're going to be asking you to be doing tonight specifically is when we get down to the slides at the bottom is the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority has been working on strategic planning for the last 4 months actually, and trying to prioritize properties. And I can tell you that's hard because there's a lot of properties that we all wanted to prioritize as number one. And I can tell you the first 2 shots that we did prioritization, almost all of them were number ones. But we did know that we had to narrow that down to the top 3 for the next 5 years. Not that we're not going to do other areas, and not that new opportunities might come up in other areas that we haven't prioritized. So again, keep that in mind as we move forward. So next slide, please. So I think this is a really good snapshot for people to look at how much the Northglenn Urban Renewal has done for the city of Northglenn. Since 1995 to 2000, NURA has invested more than $44 million, and the majority of it has been definitely in property preparation and land acquisitions, $16 million. And then new, of course, is the bond expenditures, is $16.5 million, which is going to Civic Center. And we have a complete list of everything since the very beginning, if anybody ever wants to look at the historical. But some of the big projects that we did, of course, was Marketplace. Way back in 1995, there was a lot of things. We acquired the Sears and Roebuck. We had to do a lot of things to get the properties ready for redevelopment from the original center. But we've also invested, will be investing $8 million. We've committed $8 million to Marketplace, to Hutenski Capital Partners. So that's where some of our big money went to. The Huron Center, we invested more than $3.1 million. And in Webster Lake Promenade, almost more than $2 million if you put in all of the infrastructure and the traffic lights and the other infrastructure that was put in for the developer. So those are some of the big projects. But a lot of times we forget about all the things that we have done, like the pedestrian bridge and all the repairs that we just recently did. Again, the Webster Lake Promenade light, at Community Center Drive was, with doing all of Community Center Drive, all the medians and all the landscaping, that was $2 million. So again, kudos to NURA. They're doing a great job, and they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is curing blight. Next slide, please. I want to give you a quick update on some current projects that we're working on right now. So you probably have all seen the building that's on your screen here at 112th and Washington, the 2 buildings there. We're in the process right now of purchasing that property. We have a purchase and sale agreement for $500,000 to purchase it. We've sent a 90-day relocation notice to all 5 tenants. That includes High Tide Liquor, which had to close because of the fire, but they still had an active lease. Elegant Inc., Vise Unique Styles, which is a hair salon, Toro Tax, and Shingington Spa. So those 5, we are working closely with them to find them new locations. Elegant Inc., this is their second time around because they were actually at the Garland Center. And we're relocating them a second time. And we're pleased to say that they've gone over to Phoenix Salons, and they're very, very happy over there. I think we've got a place for the hair salon, and that's going to be at 114th and Huron. And we've got several other sites that we're looking at. High Tide Liquor is looking at the Hillcrest former liquor store that closed there. And they're in negotiations with that property owner. And then again, the spa and the Toro Tax, we're touring different properties all the time, trying to find them the right location. Unfortunately, Toro Tax, we had hoped to get relocated in December before tax season started. Unfortunately, now they're right in the middle of tax season, and it's not real good timing for them to move. But we're working closely with them to, again, make sure everything goes smoothly. Garland Center remediation is going really well. Last time we reported that they were still in a pilot phase of this new e-redox system for testing. And the good thing is now we've moved into the full-scale installation. We plan on doing a new testing in the end of March. And then we'll probably have to do 2 more testings of the groundwater before we can get a no further action letter with CDPHE. So that's going very well. Marketplace, I've provided some updates in the past, but just for the audience and the residents that are listening, the pandemic has hit them very hard. Sales taxes are down approximately 12% as of October. I don't have the November or December numbers, but in October, Marketplace was down 12%. But the owners are really diligently working on focusing on retention of the tenants, keep everybody that we can there. They're renegotiating leases with the existing tenants. They expanded Scissorhand Design Studios, so they're doubling size there. 2 national tenants that will go into the Office Depot space this spring. They're finalizing those leases. And then, of course, the north end of the center is moving slower than we planned with COVID. Hopefully, we'll be able to they're working with an architectural firm right now, looking at different types of uses, including the 3-acre site on the northwest corner. So we'll keep you updated as we learn more. Heather and I have been on meetings with them every month, talking about progress and where they're moving. So, and what they're doing. Harkins Theater still has an active lease, so that still is in place. So we're not saying that Harkins is not going to be there. They still have an active lease there. Okay, next slide.
Debbie, I see a question from Councilmember Duran Malika.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So, Debbie, can you hold on one second? Maybe my computer has too many speakers on. Can you do me a favor and just help me understand? So Nura put in $8 million into the marketplace, right? And that was a couple of years ago?
Committed $8 million. Mm-hmm.
Committed $8 million. Okay. And so I feel like this project has just been really slow. And I know that COVID happened, but I do feel like, what did we get for that commitment? Anything yet? Or are we still just kind of waiting on results?
Well, they have done about $500,000 of improvements on the property, which they said that they were going to do. That's parking lots, new lights, some new landscaping. That's minimal, of course, but that was part of what they were going to do. The redevelopment agreement states in there that we will not give them incentives until they put in the Harkins Theater, and the Harkins Theater is open. So with that in mind, we did do an amendment recently last year, and that was because, as you know, there was 3 owners, and the Tuesday Morning Woodleys and K&G was owned by another building. They were able to negotiate to purchase that building, so we amended our redevelopment agreement to give them $2 million to help acquire that property, so that there was only the 2 tenants, because that was what was holding up the redevelopment. So that was huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a game changer for us. But again, until we know further, a little bit more about what's going to happen, quite frankly, I'll be honest, where is movie theaters going to be, right? I mean, we've got an active lease, the lease is there, but we want to do the best that is good for everybody, both the city, the residents, and of course the property owner. So with that said, we did spend $2 million. We renegotiated the agreement for $2 million, but it's still in there that says you're not going to get the rest of the money at this point unless we renegotiate. You're not going to get the other $6 million. And so again, that's where we're at right now, is figuring out what we're going to do on that north end, because it was really tied mainly to the north end and getting new tenants there. So again, they are attracting new tenants. They were able to, part of it was tied to Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond had to move and relocate so that they could get that space for the Harkins. We did get that done. We got Office Depot moved over. But unfortunately, these kind of projects take longer, and then you put COVID on top of it. And it has definitely delayed it. But we are actively working with them. They're working with us. And again, I hope to know more, but you're right. It's a very slow process.
It's a very slow process. And I know that, COVID was insane, but even with that, I felt like it's been a really slow process. So, and I'm sorry if you've said this several times, but I still kind of don't get it. What did we do? Why did we give them the $2 million? What was the $2 million arrangement about? Can you say that again for me?
Acquire the Arrow Rock building. That's where the K&G Tuesday Morning and right. So that one building was holding up getting leases done with anybody throughout the entire center, because that building owner had to sign off on any kind of improvements, moving Bed Bath & Beyond, moving Office Depot, changing the parking lot, doing new signage in there, which that's part of the incentive package. All of that had to be signed by them, and they were not going to sign. They were not going to sign. So in order for us to move forward, like I said, this was the game changer, was we got to get one holdout out of there, out of the picture. So now there's only the two property owners there.
Okay. I know we have more questions. One final one, just real quick. So if Harkins decides to pull out for whatever reason, because the future of movie theaters is kind of in the wind right now, what happens if Harkins decides not to move forward?
Well, we would have to renegotiate the entire redevelopment agreement. Because it's based on Harkins opening. It is based on Harkins opening. So that the redevelopment agreement would have to be renegotiated. And of course, we could renegotiate if they had a different plan, right? If they came to us with another plan, and we're not saying that that's what they're going to do, but we are keeping our options open, right? So again, it would have to be renegotiated. And I was going to talk a little bit about that when we get down into the budget part of this, because there is still $6 million, and it's relying that $6 million gets paid to HCP, and that may not occur if something did change, right?
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. That's all I had. This has been a tough project. There's no doubt.
Debbie, we have quite a few questions, so I'm going to start with Councilmember Goff and then Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Debbie, for putting together all this information. It was very thorough. Gave me some good background looking at it ahead of time. I have two questions about that property at 112th and Washington. And one is that there was a computer repair store that I think moved to working out of their home. Is that still the case? They're still in business?
They actually closed.
Okay, so that is another one.
So they terminated their lease with the current property owner right now. They did go and started doing everything because of the fire at his house, but he actually closed his business with the city of Northglenn. So we did not have to provide any relocation package for him.
Okay. All right. I was curious about that because you didn't mention that, the business.
Right.
And then the other one is behind the building that I believe you bought is the ARC office or something. They're just going to stay there and that's it?
Well, we tried to negotiate with them. We did, because the goal would be to redevelop that entire piece. It would be a bigger piece that we could redevelop, because right now this is less than a half an acre. And so it's going to be very challenging of what we can actually put there besides major curing blight, what we could build there. So we did talk to ARC. They actually went to their board and asked if they would be interested in us putting in an offer on the building. And they said not at this time. So we've kept the doors open as well as they have, that if in the future they would be interested in selling the building, we would be very interested in talking with them.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks, Debbie, for this presentation. It's really nice to have such a concise update. I'm especially excited to hear that Neura's moving forward with the property at 112th and Washington. I think there's going to be some good potential over there, and it's certainly an area in need of some love. I just wanted to go back briefly to the marketplace. I know I totally hear you in that these things take time, and just narrowing the number of tenants that you have to work with over there is just so tremendous. Just having HGC and Lowe's now, I think, opens up that area for just so much opportunity and so many new ideas. You may have already said this, but I just want to make sure that I have it clear. Do you have any sense of when we might know who the two national tenants are? Because I know that could be such a big deal over there, especially as it feels like we're just, I hate to say hemorrhaging, but it just feels like there are so many businesses that keep leaving over there.
Well, they plan on opening hopefully in this spring. And when we talked to, Heather and I talked to them last week, they're just finalizing the last of the leases. And as soon as we get that done, we'll be able to announce it. They will be they're actually separating the former Office Depot space, which is next to the Ross. And so it'll be two spaces there, and they are national tenants, which will be good.
Okay, that's great. I was really hoping that we were going to get somebody in over in that old Sports Authority, but
actually they had said that they have had somebody looking at it. So
okay,
we'll see. Fingers crossed.
All right, fingers crossed. Two more questions. One, any idea if there's any, I guess, interest in replacing, not necessarily having another Atlanta bread, but getting some other sort of, coffee and pastry shop? I know that was such a gathering place for folks in Ward 4 that's definitely been missed. And so I'm wondering if there's anything in the works over there.
I don't know if there's anything in the works, just because they're kind of at a standstill right now of evaluating the movie theater, which it would have been right next to that. I know that they had been trying to negotiate with Atlanta Bread to go over into the old Ulta space. So that would be a prime location, again, that they could potentially move something like that to if they needed the more room for Harkins to expand, right, beside Bed Bath & Beyond. So they may be keeping that open as an option, but I do know that they had been negotiating with Atlanta Bread to go over to the Ulta space, which would have been a good area for that. And we have expressed the fact of our loss with Atlanta Bread and that how popular it was with Northglenn. So hang in there. Hopefully we'll be able to bring something forward, because definitely we need something like that there.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And then last questions. I know that you had said that HGC was kind of going back to the drawing board and really thinking through how they can fully utilize that space at the marketplace. Do you have any sense of when those new plans might be ready to share with the community? I understand it's going to take some time. I'm sure folks are really interested.
I would agree. And Heather, you can chime in here too, because you've been on the phone calls with them as well. We plan on start talking with our planning department folks. They are putting the plans together of different options. What could happen, right? We had looked, I know that we had looked at, multi-tenant over there. We had looked at hotel. We'd looked at office. We've looked at a lot of different things for that 3.5 acres, but we're looking at a bigger picture now, right? What else can we do? As well as a boulevard, and is there any spaces where we could move other soft goods, up to the front and utilize that back a little bit differently? I can't give you an answer on that. Heather, did you get a feel at all?
No, you're correct, Debbie. It's really contingent upon Harkins Theater, but they're in active conversation. So unless that changes, I would expect that Debbie and I will have more of an update probably within the next month to give to NERA and council, or we'll have a better indication of why a longer wait, which we can share with you as well. But they're in active discussion. So it's really about figuring out what the right footprint of it is now. And a large part of that's due to COVID and just, looking at the business model and what makes sense for them. And so we're hopeful that because they've been in consistent communication with us, that, we'll continue to see things pick up in terms of pace as we get into the spring and into summer.
That's great.
I would add that they do want to have a meeting with all of you. So as soon as we have something a little bit more solidified that we can bring forward to both council and NERA, they're very eager to do that, because they need to be successful and we need to be successful, and they really believe that we are partners together and that we can make something really good happen there. And so they're looking for feedback and input.
That's great. I appreciate that, Debbie, and I'm especially glad to hear that that they want to come in and talk with us. And if there are other opportunities to bring in some community perspectives, or just share this information with folks, I'd certainly be interested in that. I also I'm not sure that we would have any data on this, but it's been interesting to watch Orchard. It feels like at one point, Orchard was kind of this, shiny beacon that was, stealing businesses from Northglenn. And now they don't seem to be doing as well as they had previously. So I think, while I'm sad that things haven't moved as quickly as perhaps we wanted, I also think we're in a really good spot because they've got a lot more flexibility now than perhaps they would have had in the past. And perhaps there are some lessons learned there at Orchard that we don't have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Brown.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks. Great presentation. I think that for the residents that are listening, if they've never listened to us talk about NERA, I think it's important for them to understand that the budgets are separate. You know, NERA operates on its own budget and is responsible for those things, whereas the city has its budget. Can you just expand on that so our residents understand it, or did I say enough?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. And our NERA chair is on, Rosie, if you want to add anything, but that's correct. So the city council appoints the NERA commissioners, and we have our own separate budget. The budget comes specifically from TIF, or tax increment financing revenue, which is the property tax difference between what the base was. So the property tax, what it was, new investments happen. I'll just use Huron Center as an example. Okay. So we went in and we put in $3 million of infrastructure. The developer put in $11 million of, all kinds of new improvements there. So we put in all that, and the base was here. So what the property taxes were here. And then what happened is we put in all of that new infrastructure in and all those new improvements. It raised the property value up. So the TIF is what's in between, the increment that's in between what the base was and what the new improvements are. And then we get that over a 25-year period from the date it started. The Northglenn Marketplace, their URA plan and their TIF Area 1, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, it has expired. The 25-year clock has expired. All of the other areas have a 25-year clock, and we will be collecting TIF revenue, tax increment financing revenue, just again that increment, and that goes to NERA to reinvest back into that URA area. So we have URA 1 and we have a URA 2, and then we have TIF areas underneath, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. That might explain that a little bit better. But the whole goal is to eliminate blight. So what we do is we go in and we find properties like the Huron Center that needed really a major facelift, major infrastructure improvements, and we invest in it, knowing that it's going to be a value to the city of Northglenn overall. One thing we'll talk about in a minute as well is the Civic Center land is all owned by the city. So that TIF, that base is zero. So anything that we put on there for the private sector improvements, specifically in public, you're going to be getting all of the TIF instead of just that increment. So the Civic Center project is going to be an important one, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Did that help? And Rosie, feel free to chime in here if I've forgotten anything.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I think you did a great job. It's just hard for people who don't understand it. I mean, it took me a long time. For people that don't understand it to get the grasp of what really we're talking about. So I do appreciate you bringing that up. I brought it up. You answered my question.
Urban renewal is definitely complicated. So no problem at all.
If you take money from one TIF area, it has to be reinvested in that TIF area?
In the URA plan area.
URA plan area. Mm-hmm. I'm getting close.
Really good. I'm going to try to explain it a little bit better in a few minutes.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Are we ready to share again?
Good.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. So just to give you an idea of the 2020 NERA, we provided grants of $92,000 to businesses, and I'm going to show you where that was at in just a few minutes here. It leveraged $5.5 million, and what that means is of the different grants, the projects that we invested in, which was 9 businesses invested $5.5 million. We only invested $92 million, but it leveraged and helped those businesses invest the $5.5 million in the actual projects. It will create 58,300 or impacted 58,000 square feet and retained or provided 39 new jobs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Mayor. Thank you. So this just gives you kind of an idea of where this was at. The majority of it this year, it doesn't always work that way. Some years it's like I said, Huron Center was a big one a couple years ago, was in that 112th and Huron and Office Plaza North and South. And what that was Office Plaza North and South put in all new parking lots, and they also made utility upgrades at one of those locations for their elevators, as well as BBVA Bank applied for 2 grants. And let me step back and talk about the grants here in just a second. And then the other one was a 7-Eleven. So 7-Eleven, Office Plaza North and South, and BBVA amounted to $75,000 worth of grants. So we have 2 grants. One is called the Big Grant, or the Business Improvement Grant, and that's for exterior improvements that can be seen from the right-of-way. So that includes parking lots, lighting fixtures. It mostly is used for signage, a lot for signage, but it can be landscaping. Anything you can see from the public right-of-way, that grant can cover. So we match up to $12,500. So if their sign was $5,000 to put in a new sign, we would pay $2,500, okay, because the total was $5,000. If their sign was $30,000, we would only pay a maximum of $12,500. With that in mind, on both of the grants, if they use a Northglenn contractor to do the work, they get an additional 10%. So again, we try to encourage businesses to do the work in Northglenn if possible, and we incentivize them to do that. So whatever, if they were doing a parking lot and they used one of our parking lot contractors, they would get another 10% over the $12,500. The other grant is the Business Utility Assistance Grant. We call it the BUOG grant. And that's for making utility upgrades. And that's not just that's not toilets or sinks. That's upgrading your utility from like 110 to 220. We've got a lot of old spaces out there, right, that need to be converted over. There might need to be a new water line. There might need to be a sewer line expansion. So it's for utility upgrades, and that's also a match of $12,500. And again, they get an extra 10% if they use a Northglenn contractor. Any questions on the grants before we move on? They're very, very helpful. And I know we've done some research before, and a lot of times people say, well, they're going to small businesses mostly, and that's not true. The majority of them aren't going to just small businesses, but I can tell you the small businesses are the ones that really, really need it. And most of the time they're using it for the signage.
I don't see any hands, Debbie.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the map. So as Councilmember Brown, I was explaining, if you look at the red area, that's URA Plan 1. So we have 2 plans, URA Plan 1 and URA Plan 2. Under URA Plan 1, there's 2 tax increment financing or TIF areas. One is Marketplace and one is the Huron Center. The Marketplace expired. They get 25 years and that expired. So no TIF revenue is coming from there now. We can still spend money in there, but we can't, we're not getting any investments out of the tax increment financing. However, we have the Huron Center in there, and that was started when we started the Huron Center. One of the things that, again, lessons learned, you learn these things kind of sometimes the hard way. We wanted to make sure we didn't start the clock on any of our areas until we were actually we had a project in hand. So once we started working on the Huron Center, we started the TIF clock in 2011. Now we have 25 years from there to be able to invest and to collect tax increment financing from the improvements that are made at the Huron Center. So again, URA 1 has the Marketplace, doesn't go away, it's still in there, and then the Huron Center. And so that's the red is URA 1, and if the gold area, you kind of see, I can't really point to, but you can see it over off of Huron right there. Thank you very much. That is the Huron Center. Then you've got, once we got a developer on hand for Webster Lake Promenade, we said, we've got a project. So now let's start the TIF clock. So we started, again, we created a new plan for URA Plan 2, and we included 3 TIF areas underneath them. The first one being Webster Lake Promenade, which we started the 25-year clock on that in 2014. We had a project in hand with the Garland Center, with the new Walmart. We had purchased that property. We found a user for that property, and we started the clock in 2014. So all of the tax increment from the base, that tax increment in there, we're going to be collecting at the Garland Center for that 25-year period. And then the third TIF area that we have is, we call it REM 7. And REM 7 is the remaining 7 areas. And I know it's not a creative name, but we call it REM 7. So everything in blue is the remaining 7 areas that we added to the URA Plan 2. And we did that specifically around the time that legislature was changing. You're probably all familiar with that, where we would have had to bring on board members from school districts and fire districts and all the districts, as well as potentially sharing back TIF revenue. So we created the URA 2 plan. We started all the TIF areas, and the remaining 7 we added in at that time, which was 2015. Does that make sense? It's kind of complicated to me sometimes, so if I'm not clear, please tell me. Okay, next slide. So, URA Plan 1. Here, let's start with the priority list. I apologize. So this was a priority list specifically that NERA put together. And all the maps that we're referring to, there's individual maps and there's a commercial map that's in your packet, which is attachment 5. So the individual maps, you'll see exactly the properties that are in there for Civic Center. And also there's a commercial map, just in case you're not familiar with that area. And so what we did was we said, again, we started and almost everything was ones. I think we had 2 that were 2s and 1 that was a 3. So we said we really can't accomplish everything in 5 years. So let's try to prioritize each area. And with that said, each area has reasons for why we chose them, and the NERA folks can chime in here anytime, but I wanted to kind of go through them first. So priority 1, we felt, the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority, we looked at a couple things. Where we've got money invested already, and in Civic Center, we have $11 million invested, and we know with the P3 project coming aboard that there's going to be some major TIF revenue created by that, and that's going to be a major benefit for the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority with that new revenue streams coming in with the new construction that will be occurring. The other piece is with the Civic Center, we have 1 owner there, which I put 2 in there because there's, of course, a city that owns it. But once we sell that to the developer, all the properties with the developer, there'll only be 1. And one of the items that when we started evaluating and prioritizing our business commercial areas was some of them have a lot of owners. And so it's going to be really difficult to try to get everybody on the same page to all, 1, agree to help invest in this, because NERA can't do everything, right? They need to invest in their own properties as well. But also some of them that may not be as high exposure, may not have had as much blight as other areas, or maybe we've already spent money in those areas already, and we want to give some of the other areas a chance. So Civic Center, we put as priority number 1 for NERA. And what we want you to do is to look at this priority list, tell us if we're on the right track. If there's other areas that you want us to evaluate or we want to talk more in depth about, we're definitely open to all of that as discussion. And we'll talk about the budgets and stuff in just a minute, but let's talk about the priority list. So again, Civic Center, the P3, we prioritize as number 1. Number 2, we prioritize that 112th and Irma Drive, and that also includes the 112th and Washington property. And the reason why that was chosen specifically is because of all the properties going down 112th. That's a new gateway for us, right? Because of the rail stop. There's a lot of redevelopment that is potentially available for redevelopment, and it's definitely blighted. If you look at down 112th, all of those businesses could definitely use some help. there's a new multifamily housing development that will be, that's in the works down in that area. So again, this is an area, if you've got a lot of people, if they're going to the rail station, this is a new gateway that it's always been a gateway, but not a major gateway, like 104th or Washington or Huron. But we see that being more so visibility, again, as another gateway. So that was why we chose number 2. And number 3, it was really a tie between Washington Center and Washington Point, but we ended up deciding that Washington Point is the one east 120th in Washington. That's where Smashburger is, Cheers, the DMV is over there, CSL, not the Walgreens, not the Cafe Rio, but that center over there really needs some major uplift. And so we decided that within the 5 years, these were the 3 that we really felt like we could concentrate on the most. And all of them are in Plan 2, which we do have money in Plan 2 to reinvest in those areas. The next ones that we had done specifically was the Marketplace West. And that's that dollar store, Saigon Basil, Cakes by Karen, Wells Fargo. We have done some investment over there, specifically with the Wells Fargo area, but there's still, that area over there on what we call the Marketplace Annex. There's a lot of upgrades that could potentially be done there, facade improvements, parking lot improvements, signage improvements. The next one, again, we originally, when we were doing this, we had Marketplace clear up on the top. It's not that we don't think that this is a priority, but we think that a lot of this is connected with the developer, right? We're going to partner with them no matter what. We've already invested a lot of money into them and committed a lot of money already with them. So we felt like that was lower down the scale. Not that we're not going to commit into the Marketplace with staff time and economic development and so forth, but we have already allocated $8 million over there, and the tax increment financing has expired. So again, that's why it was moved down in the priority list. And all of these, again, I want to really point out, is not that if an opportunity came up that we, if Hillcrest, which is number 6, their property owner came to us and said, we want to do a major uplift, right? And a facelift to our center, and we want to replace a lot of things. Is there anything you could do to help us? We're not going to say no. That can move up on the list, right? So we'll take advantage of the situation that might come forward. So then the next one was Washington Point. That's where Safeway is. Definitely, it could use some help as well over there. A lot of parking lot improvements, signage, getting more facades. But as you can see, there's more than 5 owners of that property. And so that one's going to be a tough one. So that was one of those ones I said that Washington Point and Washington Center were kind of even. But then when we started looking at how many owners Washington Point had, we said, that's a lot of work. And what can we do in the next 5 years? The next one is 5, and that's Mallee Drive in North Washington. That's Mallee, Northgate, what we call now Northgate. But it's specifically that restaurant parcel that's out there because we've already invested. Mile High has done a lot of improvements. Green Solutions did a huge amount of facelift to theirs, as well as the other property owners. So there's 3 owners there, but there's the 4th one, which is that restaurant, that Asian restaurant that's in the middle. So we'd like to focus on that specifically. And then also the Palmer Center that's there. That's where Abby's Carpet is, and Sherwin-Williams is. They could really definitely use some new facade improvements. We have invested money in there. They have done their parking lot. We've done new signage with them. But I think there's more that we could do. But we did prioritize that as a number 5. And these can switch back and forth. Hillcrest, they're 100% leased. They're doing really well. But definitely they've got a new owner as of about 3 years ago. If a situation came up and the owner wanted to do some investments there, definitely we would be talking with them, and that might move up in priority. Number 7 is a Huron Street, and that's everything from 112th, so Office Plaza North and South, the BBVA Bank, the 7-Eleven, all the way down to Public Storage. So you kind of think about that auto zone that's in there, a lot of automobile repair and so forth. Again, they're not as bad as some of the other properties, so they were ranked a little bit lower. And then the last one is number 8, and O'Meara Ford has one land site, and we ranked that as a 3, as well as the Huron Street and the Hillcrest. O'Meara Ford really hasn't been motivated to want to do anything with that land, and they'll only do a land lease. So I do work actively with them to try to find any kind of user that would be interested in a land lease. But the majority of people for that size of a parcel would really want to buy it and develop it. So that one's been a little bit lower on the priority list, but we have had people look at it. So again, I think the next slide, this is kind of the priority list. Before we move forward, does anybody have any questions on the priority list? Because we'll kind of go into them individually on the maps.
Councilmember Goff.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a quick one, I guess. And maybe you could just clarify, not only for me, but I'm sure for some of our listeners. You said earlier that NERA is primarily focused on addressing blight, but then you have the Civic Center Phase 3 on there, and I don't quite see the connection there because so if you could just fill that out.
Great question. So with Civic Center, there's major infrastructure that has to be put in. That's one of the blight criteria that is there. Also, there potentially could be some environmental cleanup that might need to be there. So again, the infrastructure, and because it's vacant land, right, that's there, and it's going to be redeveloped. Think about the in the P3 concept, we have an old city hall on there, right? We have an old rec center on there. All of the buildings, they go everything from cracks in your parking lots to the age of the buildings that are there. All of that contributes to blight. But that's a great question.
All right.
It won't be blighted when we get done.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Malika?
Yeah, I think my question was really more about, there is so much opportunity. As you go down this list, there's a lot of opportunity. And so it's like, how do you even start prioritizing these? And so, I think it's great that you guys at least started to try and go down here. And my take would just be like, how do most people interact with Northglenn? And it's, along the main roads, Washington, Huron, 120th and 104th. And so I don't know, for me, I would want to focus on those areas because those are kind of like the face of our city. But I understand, especially for Washington Point, because that one could use some love. But the 5 owners could be difficult. I can see that as well. So yeah, for me, I feel like it's, how do most people interact with Northglenn as they drive through us, if you will? And I see it along, especially that 120th corridor could really use some love.
Yeah.
But there's just so much opportunity. How do you pick and choose, right? So I don't envy you guys trying to prioritize those. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Debbie, I have a quick question that's maybe off the path a little bit. It's been a while since we've talked about that property right next to the rail station, the parking lot. Do we have an update on that?
The site for the residential, the multifamily, they are submitting plans. So I know the planning department is working with them. We have seen some preliminary plans on that.
Okay. I don't see any other hands. Do you want me to keep moving?
We'll go to the next slide then, please. So let's talk a little bit about a budget. Jason Loveland, who is also our treasurer for NERA, has done an incredible job on projecting the ending cash for both the URA 1, Plan 1, and Plan 2. So as you can see, in 2020, we were at 5.1 million ending cash. Now remember that there's incentives in there, right? There's that HCP incentive that's still in there. So there's still $6 million dedicated out over the years. So we have cash The cash that's coming from the majority of the properties coming from the Huron Center. And the one thing that Jason and his team is going to help us with for our annual report is to do kind of a return on investment, ROI chart on the different projects like the Huron Center, like the Marketplace, like Webster Lake Promenade, how much money we put in, and now what it has resulted in both property tax as well as tax revenue. And I think that will be really a great selling tool for our legislators to see, again, how much we put in and how much it benefited the city in sales tax and property taxes. So look forward to that. So as you can kind of see, again, the only thing that's in here producing TIF revenue now going forward is the Huron Center. So you can see that the only year that we fall a little bit behind, and again, this can all depend on the HCP incentive and when it's paid out or how it's paid out or how much is paid out, right? Right now, we've still got committed $6 million. So we're fine on year A1. We still do big grants over at the Huron Center a lot. I don't see much more besides grants happening over in the Huron Center. And quite frankly, the grants don't really produce new TIF revenue, but you can see that TIF revenue is being generated by all the improvements that we actually did over at the Huron Center with the Evergreen and Impala project. Any questions on this slide? This is Plan 1. Okay, we can go to Plan 2. This one I like the better. So as you can tell, URA Plan 2, this is our projecting into cash. And again, this is tax increment of revenue that's coming from Webster Lake Promenade. It's coming from the Garland Center. It's coming in the properties around Civic Center, Garland Center, and specifically the REM 7. So those three areas that we talked about before are producing tax increment revenue. And this is the projected ending cash that we have. So we look in really good shape here. And so that we can be reinvesting into these areas. So again, being conservative with 3 properties for the first 5 years is what we were thinking. As we grow our projected ending cash in these areas. This does not include P3 tax increment revenue. Remember, I talked about how that city-owned land, so the actual base is at 0. So we'll get 100% of all of the TIF revenue. So that's not included in these projections. So hopefully that will look even better as we move forward. Next slide, please. So we wanted and all the maps are in your attachment 5, but these are the 3 priority areas. Again, Civic Center, again, it's the private partnership, the P3 component. So again, where the rec center property is, as well as where the city hall is for redevelopment. That would be our priority 1. Next slide. 112th and Irma. Again, this would be, as you can see from the left, that's 112th and Washington. And that's where that light is. So it's going down all the way down to 112th. And all those properties in there have potential for redevelopment, for upgrading, facade improvements, parking lot improvements, and potentially, new projects in that area. Because there's a lot of businesses in there that, there might be a better use in there as we move forward. So next slide, please. And then 112th Avenue and Washington Street. Again, we chose the Washington point. One of the other things, Councilmember Mullica, that we talked about for this specifically was that 120th corridor as being both 104th and 120th. Those are major, major corridors. And as you know, there's a lot of money both the city of Northglenn and the city of Thornton are putting in to widen 120th. So that is a major, major area that we want to make sure that we are upgrading. Again, we can still work on Washington Center as we move forward, but Washington Point we put as a priority 3. And the next slide. So this is the fun part. It's the interactive part. So Mara, if you wouldn't mind putting up everybody's screen, that would be great. And NERA commissioners, feel free. I'm sure I've forgotten a few things in our conversation, so help me with what I might have forgotten. And let's just open up the conversations. What do you think?
Councilmember Goff?
Okay, I'll start it off because I kind of have a question. I'm not quite sure I understand the difference between Plan 1 and Plan 2. How are they related to the priorities that you were spelling out?
So Plan 1 is the Marketplace and Huron Center. Marketplace, the TIF clock expired, so we're not getting any more TIF revenue from it.
Right.
So we're only getting TIF revenue in the URA 1 from the Huron Center. Those are the only two properties that are in URA 1. Everything else is under the URA 2.
So why is the year 2023 in red? I mean, what are you projecting to happen there?
And Jason, I think you're on the phone here, so help me, but I think that has to do specifically with the HCP paying out of the, when we expected to pay out the incentive for HCP. Because we had $8 million, we spent $2 million, but we had anticipated that Harkins was going to come in, open up, again, that was their opening date, and we would pay out the rest of the incentive at that time. That may not happen. It may be longer, maybe sooner, right? So that was the only dip that we took.
Okay, and then that will eventually, we'll be able to recoup that from the TIF that might happen after it gets established. The Harkins Theater is up and running.
No, there won't be any more TIF revenue at all.
Okay. Oh, okay.
The clock is expired. Unless we reblighted the Marketplace, we couldn't collect, we aren't going to collect any more TIF revenue.
Okay, so Plan 1 is happening. There's nothing we can do about it. And so then Plan 2 is what would happen if we go through with the 3 priorities that you had listed, or am I just not following?
It's complicated. Good questions. So Plan 2 has all the other urban renewal properties. So that's going to be Webster Lake Promenade and all the Civic Center stuff, all that here, right? It's going to have the Garland Center in it. And it's going to have Garland Center here. I'm drawing a blank. Garland Center, Washington, and then the REM 7. REM 7 is the rest of them. So if you go back to that map, Mir, would you mind going back to 19, the slide, page 19 on there, I think on your... So Plan 2 is just, it's like what we currently have and the projections based on that. Yes, and the TIF revenue.
Okay. Okay.
No, it's complicated.
So then the priorities we're talking about won't affect either one of those charts that are labeled Plan 1 and Plan 2.
What, the Civic Center?
No, well, you have these priorities. This chart.
Plan 2. All of the priorities.
They're not going to affect those plans because those plans are already in place.
They are.
Okay, got it. All right.
My apologies.
That's fine. I think I got it now.
Debbie, what slide do you want?
It's the map, which go down a little bit more.
It's page 30.
Yeah, it's in the NERA part.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said 19.
I'm looking at a different screen. I apologize. List map right here. Yep.
Got it.
So again, the URA Plan 1, you see TIF Area 1 is Marketplace. URA Plan 1, TIF Area 2 is Huron Center, right? Huron Center has been redeveloped. We're just going to be collecting the TIF from that redevelopment and that property. Marketplace doesn't create any more TIF. We're not doing anything. We are going to be developing there. We're going to be adding new tenants. We're going to be redeveloping, but we're not going to get any revenue from it, not TIF revenue. We'll get sales tax revenue, right? Then you've got Plan 2, and Plan 2 has 3 TIF areas, Webster Lake, Garland, and the remaining 7, which is the ones in blue. So the priority 1, 2, and 3 that we have are all in URA 2. So Civic Center is in URA 2, and that started specifically, again, Webster Lake is what we call it, but it started in 2014. So you see Webster Lake right there. The Civic Center falls in that TIF area. The second priority is 112th and Irma Drive, and that's in the blue area. That's in REM 2, and it's in URA Plan 2. And then priority 3 is that Washington Point on 120th, and it's in Plan 2, and it's in REM 7. So 2 are in REM 7 and 1 is in the TIF area 1, which is Webster Lake or Civic Center area.
Okay, so the plans are kind of like giving us background of what's been done and where we are, and now you're asking us to just help you decide on the priorities.
Well, the plans are even bigger than that. The plans are kind of the overall overarching plan that we have for that area. So there's all kinds of things in there. I'd be happy to share that with you. And then there's TIF areas underneath it. So the plan was, we did that a long time ago. We did that, 25 years ago for Marketplace. We had a vision, right? It's a visionary document. That's the plan. And then within the plan, you can start clocks or TIF clocks underneath there for specific projects.
All right, but just to clarify for us, so tonight what you're asking is some feedback on the priorities.
Yes.
Got it.
Priority list.
So Debbie, I see a couple of NERA members that I think want to help out with this. So I had Kathy Novak and then Rosie.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make the point that while we're spending the rest of that money in the Marketplace, and NERA won't be getting any more revenues from that. But the intent is that we'll be getting lots more, the city will be getting a lot more in sales tax revenues because of the investment that NERA made. So once all that's open, the revenue will be coming directly to the city and not to NERA. I just wanted to make that point.
Rosie, how about you?
I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications. Kathy just opened up the concept of, we work together and we're symbiotic. When we do projects, we gain money from TIF, which is the value of the property. The city gains money from sales tax. So that's how we work together, but yet our benefits are in different areas. So, and of course, overall, it's improvement of the city. The other thing I just wanted to point out is something very basic about, you might wonder, I'm sure you're wondering, why do we have all these different plans? Well, we learned years ago, and some of us have been around for a long time, that other cities had different clocks running, and that we didn't realize you could do that. And so we started looking into how are they getting away with this? Different TIF clocks in different areas. And we realized, and our attorneys are here so they can stop me if I'm totally wrong, but that you can create different areas and different plans for those areas, and they can run off of different TIF clocks. So that's why we have Plan 1 and Plan 2 and sub areas within there. They all have different clocks running. So that's the beauty of taking advantage of the 25 years in the best way that we can. So I just want to make that clarification.
Thank you. That was helpful. Councilmember Peterson? Oh, you changed your mind? Okay. Councilmember Duran Malika?
Thank you. I actually had another question just kind of to follow up on that is, so you said, Debbie, Jason was going to try and help you guys work on kind of like an ROI analysis and things like that. I think that could be really helpful here when you're trying to prioritize moving forward because, as I'm thinking about, the opportunity for increased sales tax along the 120th corridor could be really huge given the fact that, traffic's pretty much a standstill, during, high traffic time. And so, the opportunities there are huge. And so I feel like having that type of analysis could help me understand the potential for the various areas and then which one could give us the more bang for the buck, right? And so, I would really love to see something like that. I think that could really help me understand at least where is there more opportunity or less opportunity in certain areas.
Good idea.
Any other questions or comments for Debbie?
Thoughts on priorities? Do you want to think about it? I mean, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but we were just wanting to have an open discussion with you to see how you felt. Or if you need more time for discussion or.
Yeah, so I had a question. I'm going to share my screen again really quickly. Because as you were sharing the priority list, I was getting confused by the priority number and then it says individual map number.
Right.
Because you have obviously, so when you go through this and you have 3 priority ones, do you want us to prioritize which one should go first, or have you already done that in how you've typed it out?
That's how we've done it.
With the fact that instead of having a number for each, you've repeated the priority numbers. I didn't understand that part.
Well, okay, I apologize. They're not necessarily in that order, but you're right. In that order, priority 1 is Civic Center. Then priority 2, again, there's 3 priority ones, would be 112th and Irma, and the third one would be 120th and Washington. It's not that any of those are more or less. Those are the 3, and it's going to depend on the opportunity, right, of working with the property owners. But those are the top 3 that we would want to focus on investing dollars in, as well as working with proactively with the property owners to invest in. So it could be that, honestly, 120th and Washington might come before Civic Center, right? Because Civic Center might be 3 years down the road, and this is over the next 5 years. Or 112th might come first before Civic Center or the Washington Street properties. So those were the top 3 that we wanted to focus on, but we're open to any others as well. So.
Yeah, I think you did. I don't know if this was the one you called messy, but this one's hard to understand, but I got it. And that made a lot of sense. So, I mean, my take on this is that the NERA board is highly skilled and highly qualified and very invested. And if these are your recommendations, I fully support them because you know the property owner, you have had conversations, and you're connected with them. So I don't have any recommendations to change, but I do see a bunch of hands. So Councilmember Goff.
Thank you once again. I think that I would echo the mayor. I don't have any problems at all with your top 3 priorities, but I do want to make sure, I know you've said it several times, but every time you go back to that chart and it's not listed there, that the 112th and Washington property is included in that Irma Drive section or whatever you want to call it, then yes, I'm all for it, because that is just, every time I drive by that, I just, and it's been that way for so long, that really needs some attention. Thank you.
It is included.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, ditto. I follow whatever the Neuro Board favors on this. Their work has been exemplary. I appreciate their being here tonight, and I have no changes or recommendations to their priority list. Thank you.
Councilmember Downing.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank the Neuro Board for all the work they're doing. This is not an easy task. And I know that they're so flexible. If there is an opportunity, they always take advantage and are able to move on that particular event or opportunity. So thank you again. I appreciate it. And I don't have any changes for you at all. I just appreciate everything you do.
Does anybody else want to weigh in? Councilmember Brown?
I love the plan, Debbie. I don't think there should be any changes at all. You did such a great job today. Thank you so much for putting everything together for us. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to agree with what everyone else has said, especially you, Mayor, and Councilmember Peterson. I totally trust NERA and what they've come up with. I'm excited to see the 112th and Irma Drive project up there because I think that's important, being near the rail line. But I love this and I agree with it. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was really thankful that you and Debbie helped clarify the listing of each of the projects. I was also confused with that and didn't realize that they had been grouped and categorized. So with that clarification, I'm also on board with the recommendation. I think that there are certainly some areas within our community that need some love, and I appreciate all of the work that NERA's done to prioritize those, to identify them, and to build out a plan for how we continue to make our city shine. So thank you all so much for the work that you do.
Anybody else? Debbie, do you have more to present, or was that
No, that is it. So what we'll do with this information is we will be putting a strategic plan together for the next 5 years, and we'll put it in draft form, of course, and have you guys review it. And look forward to any input. We're your partner. We're here to help the city. So if you see anything that you want NERA to start looking at, feel free to give us a call. And again, this priority list can go different directions depending on the situation. Thank you very much for your support.
Rosie, how are you?
I just want to thank everybody for allowing us to work with you so closely. I don't think every city has this is as fortunate as we are from an urban renewal standpoint. You know, we're very fortunate to be able to communicate with you so directly and so frequently, and you know, be able to run things past you, and you know, and hopefully come out with a solid outcome. That's the plan. So thank you for allowing us to do this, and we enjoy what we do, and we all have the same vision, I think. I'm hoping so. Looks like we do. So thank you again.
Thank you. And thank you to all the NERA members that joined us this evening. It was a pleasure to see you and hear from you. And thank you all. And our meeting is adjourned. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.